Welcome back to Old School Sports and our Out of the Park Baseball 26 mini-series with the Los Angeles Angels. And we're about 2.5 months into the 2028 season. Angels having a solid season at 36-28. Second place in the AL West, 3.5 behind the Mariners, and a game ahead of the Rangers. We would be in the second wild card spot, game ahead of the Rangers if the season were to end today. Played really well in the month of April. We played good in the month of May. Haven't been playing as well, though, the later part of May into June. Hopefully we can get that turned around soon. But definitely a few holes on this team that we're going to be looking to fill over the next month and a half or so until we get to the trade deadline. And one piece of advice from the worldwide scouting department that we've got to kind of take into account came from longtime viewer Stanley Rosella in a comment to a recent episode where he suggested, we start looking to trade away some of the money that we have to bring on assets. And I think it's a really good point. Over the last several years of OOTP, those of you who have followed me closely know I've typically been playing with very low budget teams, and I've definitely built in this poverty type mindset where I'm just obsessively trying to bring money back, even though the money only helps for a couple months or at best the better part of a year. Very willing to trade away players to get money. But I do need to recognize that we've got the 10th biggest budget in baseball with this Angels team, and we've got plenty of money right now. And I don't know that including money in a trade typically has as much value to the AI as it sometimes has to me when I'm getting it in return, but definitely need to think about that more detailed and be willing to take on complete contracts right now if they can help us, since we've got the money to do it. And if we need to send some money away and it gives us some value, should be very willing to do that as well. So that was a good point by Stanley. Have made one change since the last episode. Brought Luis Serna back up to the majors. We had the lefty Sam Aldeguerri being a fourth lefty for us out of the bullpen since we had brought up Bach Selvage, who certainly isn't doing well with an 8.10 ERA in his major league debut. But Aldeguerri had a bigger sample size. His ERA was close to 6. So he clearly wasn't getting the job done either. So we'll bring Luis Serna back up. He was up with us very briefly last September and did a respectable job for us. He's been good in AAA Salt Lake this year. So we will bring him back up, see if he can hopefully help us a little bit going forward. Part of the reason he's up is that we do have some pretty major injuries that we've been dealing with this season. Pitching-wise, we knew we were going to be dealing with DeGrom. We signed him coming out of spring training, knowing that he was going to be out to 4 to 5 months. But the hope is that we'll get him back for a rehab assignment sometime in early to mid-August. And by September roster expansion, maybe he can be helping to improve our rotation or improve our bullpen, depending on what he actually looks like after this latest injury. Number 3 starter Michael King still out for another couple weeks, and reliever Ben Joyce out for another 3 months. So that's definitely not helping. Zach Neto and Royce Lewis. Neto, a key player for us, and Royce Lewis, a platoon player who's been our number 1 defensive and offensive substitute among our infielders, both out. Lewis should be back soon, which should help us improve our offense a bit. And then as we start thinking about the trade deadline, we had picked up Randy Arozarena on a minor league signing in February. He's been our DH only against left-handed pitching, and he's been pretty brutal, hitting just a .130 with 22 strikeouts and 77 at-bats. sickly 35 WRC plus, and he's been almost a win below replacement despite starting just 22 games for us. So one thing that we may look to pick up in the trade market, in addition to potentially some bullpen help, would be a right-handed hitting bat that could produce more than a 130 batting average, which I don't think is going to be all that difficult or expensive to find. But for the near term, we're probably going to just continue over the next 2 to 3 weeks, giving people time, unless we really start dropping in the standings and fall out of a playoff spot, give people time to figure out what they look like when we get to the midway point of the season. And then we'll do our roster review that we typically do at that midway point and start putting together a more fulsome plan around what's working and what's not working and where we might need to look for help. As we touched on at the end of the last episode, the trade block is not particularly well stacked at this point, given that it's only June 12th. So waiting a few more weeks will hopefully give us an opportunity for some other teams that are struggling a bit to fall out of things. But looking at the division graph, you can see just about a month ago we were on top by a pretty significant amount, and it hasn't been a complete downturn for us, but we have definitely been struggling while the Mariners have been surging over these last few weeks. And as we get the episode rolling, 4-6 record for us thus far in the month of June. And interestingly, only one divisional game the rest of the month. We'll start a series in Houston on the final day of June. But if we're going to turn this team around, it's going to be against teams that we don't face all that often. And we've gotten this episode off to a good start. Although we lost the first game at San Diego, we've won 5 in a row since then. So took 2 out of 3 in San Diego, and then we swept the first 3 games of this homestand against Detroit. Got the Yankees coming up before we begin a long road trip to finish off the month at Pittsburgh, at Cleveland for 4, and then at Houston as we move into July. But certainly that 5-1 record helps. 5 straight wins puts us 3.5 still behind Seattle, but we've opened up an extra game on us between us and the Rangers. You can see Seattle, the Angels, and the Rangers all on little winning streaks at this point, so not making up a ton in the division, but we are now 2 up on the final wild card spot and in the number 1 wild card spot in the American League as we sit here on June 19th. And another good week in the books for our Angels. We took 2 out of 3 against the Yankees, although the winning streak did stop at 7. And then we took 2 out of 3 on the road at the Pirates. So at 45-31, 76 games into the year, this is when Mr. Moreno has given us our midseason review of the goals. Thinks we've done a heck of a job with the team. Keep it up to hit our goal of making the postseason. Very pleased that Andres Rodriguez is a top 6 center fielder. Don't know if that's quite accurate, but happy that he's pleased with that. We didn't sign Sam Hentges to an extension, so no question that that's going to be a hit for us. Doing a good job improving fan interest. And once again, not happy with what we do with our international amateur fines. Quite honestly, that's a goal that in my opinion has been busted in the game pretty much as long as I remember it being part of the goals, and I think the goals have only been in the game for the past several years at this point, but wants us to improve our international amateur fines, and he gave us to us in 2025. Well, you don't do the first international amateur free agent period starting in 2025 until January of 2026. And so you're picking 16-year-olds in 2026 who are going to be most likely 21-year-olds by 2031, and everybody else that you're picking in subsequent years is a year younger in 2031. I think it's a great goal, and it's just an unrealistic time frame because particularly if it happens at the start of a game, you haven't even had the opportunity to build your IAFA pool at all, and you're really only getting 5 years to build it up. So the players are just borderline major leaguers if they're an absolute quickly developing superstar. So although it would be kind of odd for an owner to give someone who's typically on a 3 or 4 year contract a 10-year goal, I do think that the improving the international amateur fines is one that probably needs to be tweaked a little bit, because by the time this goal is up, and it's still 3 years from now, we might have 1 or 2 players who have played a few months in the majors, and that's if we've had really good development and returns. But even getting a couple of WAR from some guys who go on to have big time careers isn't going to really satisfy what the owner is looking for. So enough of my editorializing about that goal, but I would say that's my view of that one. Overall, though, Moreno, happy with our progress towards goals, happy with on-field and front office management. So we are in a pretty respectable spot here as we close in on the midway point of the season. 3 games behind in the division, 4 games now up on the wild card spot. Addison Barger third in the AL in hitting. Vlad Guerrero now tied for the league lead in ribbies. And Spencer Schwellenbach leading the league in wins here on June 26th. I'll sim forward till the start of July before doing our mid-season review, 76 games. A little bit early for that, so I'll wait till we're at 80, 81. I think it'll be 80 if I'm doing my math correctly here. No, it will be 81. We'll have 4 more games between now and the end of the month, so we will actually be perfectly at the midway point of the season, assuming nothing gets rained out. And kind of a meh finish to the month. We only won 2 out of the last 5 games, took 2 out of 4 in Cleveland, and we just lost the opener of the Astros series in 10 innings. The 2 wins that we did have in Cleveland were in extra innings, however, so can't complain about the extra inning games. So as we sit here on June 1st, 47-34 record, which puts us perfectly on track to match the 94 wins that we had a year ago when we won the division. Unfortunately, this time around, we're 3.5 back in the AL West, 2.5 games up on the final wild card spot in the American League. Take a look at our team statistics, and we did end up with that really nice stretch in the month of June with a winning month for a 3rd straight month. So our 47-34 record is 2 below Pythagorean expectations, 5th in the American League in runs scored, and in the top half of all of the major hitting categories except for walks, where we're right in the middle of the pack, 8th, stolen bases, 8th as well. Pitching going very well, tied for 2nd in the American League in runs allowed. Starters ERA 6th. The much improved bullpen ERA is 3rd in the league. Generally in the top half of most pitching categories except for BABIP and home runs allowed, where we're 9th. Defensive efficiency a little better than the last time we checked in, but still not great. 8th in the AL in defensive efficiency, so we're average. And zone rating, we're a little bit below average, but holding our own. And hopefully we got Royce Lewis back a couple of weeks ago in the early stages of this episode. Neto should be back relatively soon, and hopefully getting people back into their more normal positions will help us improve the defense over the second half of this season. So as I noted, the pitching staff's been really good this year. Starting-wise, it's been almost completely driven by Schwellenbach, having a really good year for us, 9-3, 2.17 ERA, and a 2.4 WAR over the first half of the season. He is definitely our number one. We were expecting more from Taj Bradley in his first full year with us. 5-5 with a 5.22 ERA. He's actually been slightly below replacement level this year. Looking at his ratings, still looks like a pretty solid major league pitcher. So we'll have to just tribute it to bad luck. He has given up an insane 23 home runs in 88 innings pitched with us. That's more than double the rate that he gave up a year ago with us. Still has decent movement on his pitches, average-ish in terms of the amount of home runs he should allow, although he is a fly ball pitcher. But if he can kind of get back to a more respectable rate of allowing home runs, not even a great rate, but just respectable in terms of awful, that should hopefully help turn him around over the second half of the year. Christian Scott's been moved up to the number 3 spot in the rotation, although Michael King did just start a rehab assignment, so hopefully we'll have him back soon. 6-3 record, but the ERA is ballooned to 4.48 this year. Similar situation, he's allowed 14 home runs in 84 1/3 innings pitched, so not as dramatic as Bradley, but he's definitely been allowing more home runs this year as well. Roasny Contreras, 7-6 record, 4.16 ERA, 1.1 WAR on the year. He was supposed to be our number 5 starter when the season got underway. Has gotten an opportunity to move up to the 4 hole with the injury to King. Certainly respectable results for a 5th starter and even for a 4th starter. George Klassen has finally gotten to start a little bit with the injuries that we've had. 1-2 record with a 4.22 ERA. He has struck out 50 in 42 2/3 innings. Take a quick look at his splits as a reliever, a 2.57 ERA, and as a starter, a 3.88 ERA. Now, that doesn't make sense to... Oh, that's including the minor leagues. There we go. I was like, those numbers don't add up. 2.57 ERA as a reliever, and as a starter, his ERA is a bit over 5, slightly below replacement level since he's been starting for us at the major league level. So will be good to get King back and let's see how he did with the 1 start he's had. Took the loss, did go 6 innings, 3 hits, 3 walks, 8 strikeouts. Interestingly, all 3 of the hits that he gave up were home runs, as we're talking about some of the guys on our team having problems allowing home runs. But he did go 87 pitches a couple days ago. Probably will, before we move forward, look to bring him back up since he's apparently pretty much all stretched out at this point, even though he was not particularly effective in AAA, given that Klassen's had a 5 ERA in the majors. Probably makes sense to bring the veteran King back up and into the rotation. Joan Duran, a brutal 5.23 ERA. The issue for him has been the walks, 12 walks in 20 2/3 innings. It looks like his control is regressed a little bit from the start of the season where we thought it was average. Overall, an 0-3 record with 17 saves. He has been slightly above replacement level for us, but definitely not what we were looking for after he was so good for us towards the end of last season when we picked him up as a rental before letting him hit free agency and then ultimately bringing him back. Hopefully things will be better going forward. The 328 BABIP against him should come down, given that his stuff and his movement are still above average. Cade Smith, who we picked up in a trade this past offseason, has been a high volume and pretty effective stopper for us. He's pitched 55 innings, struck out 64, 3.27 ERA, and a WAR of over 1 in that little sample size. He's doing his job. Garrett McDaniels, our top lefty out of the bullpen, definitely doing his job as well. A 1.80 ERA over 40 innings pitched for the lefty reliever. Ryan Walker, who we picked up in a trade with the Dodgers before the deadline a year ago, doing well his first full year in Anaheim. 2.54 ERA over 39 innings pitched. So the back end of the bullpen pretty solid, assuming that Duran reverts towards what he's typically been. Middle reliever is also doing well. Colin Snyder, 2.08 ERA over 30 1/3 innings of work. He's been a very productive waiver claim for us from a few years ago. Gabe Spire just wasn't getting a ton of innings as a lefty specialist, so we moved him into a relief role. Still only 28 and a third innings over 31 games, so still tends to come in when we need a big out or two against a lefty. 3.18 ERA on the season, 11.4 strikeouts per nine. Brock Selvage, talked about him at the start of the episode. He's pitched 7 games for us now with a 5.56 ERA over 11 and a third innings, making his major league debut. He will likely be the guy that we send down to the minors when we bring King up. And Luis Serna has not allowed a run over 5 innings, 1-0 record, 1 shutdown, only 2 hits allowed, although he has walked 4 in that limited sample size. His Sierra of 6.07 indicates he's probably gotten somewhat lucky, but he still has been more effective than the other former Yankee farmhand Selvage. So even though I guess I do need to think about, do we really want to have just 2 lefties in the pen, given that we've got no lefties in the rotation? That may end up saving Selvage on the major league roster for at least the near term. And we did decide to send Serna down, even though he hadn't allowed a run in the 5 innings that he's pitched. Felt like having a third lefty out of the bullpen in Selvage, even if he's typically just going to be used in long relief and mop-up roles, gives our manager a little more optionality. So King is back, 4-0 record with a 3.99 ERA and almost 12 strikeouts per 9 innings. So he's put up a 1.6 WAR for us at the major league level. Been pretty effective this year, and it'll be good to get back to the rotation that we thought we would have when this season got underway. And before we move on to our midseason review of our hitters, we'll check in on the pitchers who are on the trade block. And although it's a larger group than the one I had referenced earlier in the episode, not necessarily all that more impressive. Doesn't look like there's any true difference makers available working out of the bullpen, but we'll continue to monitor things before we take a look at our everyday players, where we may have a few more moves that we want to consider. The list of everyday players on the trade block is still pretty sparse. Ryan Jeffers and Jose Ramirez were kind of the top 2, at least according to where our scout thinks their overall ratings are. And they were on it a few weeks ago. Don't know that either of them really fits a huge need for us. Jeffers would give us a little more pop behind the plate, but he's not as good defensively as either our right-handed hitting Flores or left-handed hitting Baldwin, who work in a platoon right now and are both better defensively. So don't know if there's anything to do there. Jose Ramirez certainly could be an interesting switch hitter. But as I mentioned, I think our biggest gap is a right-handed bat who can rake against left-handed pitching if we're going to be moving on from Arozarena, who has been pretty bad in that role. And Ramirez doesn't necessarily fit that. And the price tag is also, actually the price tag doesn't matter because he's exercising his 10-5 rights now to veto any trade. So doesn't seem like he's interested in moving on quite yet from the team where he has spent, I believe, over a decade at this point. Looking at the standings, the Guardians at 46 and 37 are in first place. So makes sense that he's not all that eager to move right now. So we'll turn now to our position players. Mentioned the platoon at catcher, the left-handed hitting Baldwin, hitting .263 with 6 homers and 26 ribbies and 186 at-bats. So he's put up a 102 WRC plus for us, a 1.4 WAR on the year. Certainly holding up his end of the bargain as a solid defensive catcher with a decent bat. The youngster Juan Flores, the bat is definitely more problematic, hitting just a .194 for us in 98 at-bats, playing primarily against left-handed pitching. Does have 3 homers and 12 ribbies, but ultimately just a 49 WRC plus. He is our best defensive catcher, so he's been replacement level at this point. I can live with that for a backup catcher. Certainly would love him to be a little bit above replacement. Don't think it's urgent that we move on from him, but clearly if there was a right-handed hitting catcher with some good defense, Flores at 22 years old still has minor league options and could certainly go down to AAA for a while. Vlad Guerrero Jr. finally in his third year with us here in Los Angeles is doing what we expected he would do. 18 homers and 66 ribbies while hitting 287 on the season. OPS close to 900, 144 WRC plus, and a 2.2 WAR midway through the season. Not a dominant offensive season, but he's still on pace to have 36 home runs and 132 runs batted in. So that 132 runs batted in number, as we talked about earlier, has him set up to be leading the league if he keeps up that pace. So that's a pretty dominant number, although I'd say it's a excellent offensive season that he's on pace for, but not something that's truly otherworldly, and we're certainly hoping that there might be a otherworldly season in there for Guerrero Jr., given that we're paying him close to $40 million a year. Picked up Kyle Manzardo in a trade with Cleveland, and he has been the productive part of our designated hitter platoon. Unfortunately, he's the guy who's been playing more often against right-handed pitching, hitting 269 with 7 homers and 30 ribbies, put up a 112 WRC plus for us. Doesn't bring anything to the table defensively or on the base paths or in the clubhouse with his tendencies toward greed and sloth. But still, for what he's making, has been a good bat to have against right-handed pitching for us. Royce Lewis, as we noted, spent some time on the IL. He's been productive when he's been healthy, though, hitting 269 in 108 at-bats, 108 WRC plus, and a 0.4 WAR. He was a pure third baseman when we made that trade to rent him for this season from Minnesota in spring training, and honestly now during the regular season we've been training him up a bit in left field and second base. Still not quite at his peak in terms of his ability at second base. He's been definitely below average there at this point with a minus 2.2 zone rating and 968 defensive efficiency. Not a complete disaster, but the hope is that over the next month or so he'll get fully trained up in second base and hopefully be even better defensively when we get towards the playoffs. David Mershon, final cut coming out of spring training with the injuries that we've talked about to Neto that's currently still happening and Lewis that he's recovered from, has come up and hitting just a $179 and 106 at-bats for us, 32 WRC plus. He's been below replacement level despite the fact that he is diverse in terms of the number of positions he can play defensively and pretty respectable at them. Also only 1 for 3 on the base paths, so I thought he might bring a dimension to be able to give us a little more threat-stealing bases, and he hasn't done that either. He'll likely be headed back to AAA whenever Neto is ready, and might as well check in on Neto's stats while we're talking here. He was hitting 244 and 135 at-bats for us, 96 WRC plus when he fractured that finger about a month and a half ago. Only 3 days of recovery time at this point, so he should be joining us again very shortly, which will be a positive thing for us. Speaking of positive things, Addison Barger's been a really good player for us since we picked him up in a trade with the Blue Jays. 299 average, 13 homers, 54 ribbies this year, OPS close to 900, 144 WRC plus, and a 2.6 WAR for the third baseman. So he was an all-star for us in 2026. Had an even better season last year when he wasn't an all-star, and certainly should likely be getting some attention to be an all-star at third base again this season. The last infielder, shortstop Anthony Volpe, and if we can get league average offense from him, which is what we've gotten this year with his good personality and solid glove, that's definitely a valuable player. He's put up a 1.8 WAR for us this year, 8 homers and 35 ribbies, and he's stolen 11 bases in 13 attempts for us. Turning to the outfielders, we talked about Arozarena earlier in this episode. Really hasn't gotten much better. The batting average is 141 through 92 at-bats. Just a 36 WRC plus, almost a win below replacement. Looks like no one else signing him through the offseason was the right decision, and it seems like he might be pretty well washed. Doesn't bring much defensively. He's been primarily a DH for us, although apparently he's played a game at second base, which is brutal to think about. We definitely have had some gaps in the infield with those injuries, but the fact that he actually started a game at second base and played 9 innings there is troubling, to say the least. So Arozarena, a guy that we will likely be moving on from over the next few weeks before we get to the trade deadline. If we had a solid right-handed major league bat in AAA, would probably just cut him outright right now. I'll take another look. I don't really think we've got anyone who's quite ready, but it is the start of the month, which is when I typically tend to spend a little time looking at our minor leagues and seeing if anyone's improved significantly, promote some players, and maybe there'll be someone who's been raking in AAA who probably can't do worse than Arozarena has done for us. Dylan Cruz has been platooning for us against left-handed pitching, primarily in left field. 266 average, 4 homers, 16 ribbies, slightly below average offensive player. If Arozarena wasn't so awful, Cruz is a guy we might be looking to move on from as a right-handed hitter, but he's been borderline respectable. He's been platooning with Nolan, who's also a slightly below average offensive player this year. 245 average, 7 homers, 30 ribbies. Nolan has been pretty bad in left field, minus 9.9 zone rating and an 826 for defensive efficiency, a below average arm. He's always been bad defensively, but when he was putting up 120-ish WRC pluses the last couple years, we could live with it. You can see he's almost a win below replacement level this year, given the mediocre offense in the brutal defense. So between left field and part of our DH platoon, definitely some opportunities to improve in the trade market. The youngster Andres Rodriguez having a really good rookie season. The one thing you can ding him for is the 234 batting average, but everything else is pretty positive. 12 doubles, 2 triples, and 14 homers. He's on pace to score over 100 runs. He's driven in 31, walked 40 times, stolen 7 bases. With those walks, his on-base percentage is over 100 points higher than his batting average. So an OPS of close to 800, 115 WRC plus, and a 2.8 WAR. Youngster has definitely stabilized the center field position for us. Defensively, 5.3 zone rating, 1.028 defensive efficiency. He has made 1 error, but given that despite his really good defensive range, he's still below average in terms of his error rating. If he's going to make 2 errors a season for us in center field with the number of balls that he's going to run down, I think we can definitely live with that. So really pleased with what Putt has done in his introduction to the major leagues. Right fielder Kyle Tucker hitting just 228, 10 homers, 42 ribbies, 92 WRC plus, while Guerrero's getting better and better each year with us since we signed him as a free agent. Tucker, the other big free agent acquisition that year, is getting worse and worse. Still has put up a 1.2 WAR for us. Getting him out of center field and into right field, where he's been well above average, has helped us defensively. But I'd say the positive thing is that we only signed him to a 5-year deal. The yearly numbers, we set it up so it was slightly front-loaded. And we will only officially have him on the books for another 1.5 years because we do have a team option for the 2030 season. So hopefully he'll start hitting better. but when you look at his ratings, he's definitely kind of aging a bit, and it's hard to imagine that he's going to get better from here. So hasn't really worked out the way that we had hoped, but given that he is at least a solid defensive player, I still would argue that left field and DH are the more critical issues that we need to address in the trade market. Pretty comfortable with our starting infield, although we could use a little more depth there. And center field, very good feeling about Rodriguez. Fine with Tucker and right field, and kind of fine right now with the catching platoon. But as I said, if there was a right-handed hitting catcher with good defense, we could put in the platoon with Baldwin over Flores to give us a little more offense. Certainly something that we'd also consider. So on pace, as we said, to win 94 games, exactly the same as a year ago. On pace to make the playoffs once again. Don't think we need to be rash over this next month, but certainly hope that as other teams fall out of contention, hopefully the trade block around the league gets a little more interesting, and we can hopefully find someone who can help fill some of the gaps that we've been talking about. And while we're checking in on things, we'll check in on a couple of the top prospects in our organization. Minor league system ranking slipped to 4th with Mr. Rodriguez now in the majors. Heriberto Garza, who we picked up as an IAFA signing, listed as the number 17 prospect in baseball. He's still at our international complex, only 16 years old. Sean Gamble, we just promoted to AAA, although he's suspended, number 22 prospect in baseball. We picked him 2nd overall in 2025. Hit .309 with 9 homers and 37 ribbies in 71 games in AA for us, so he handled that level well. Trying to just get him as diverse as possible in terms of the number of defensive positions he can play for us. I think he's going to be a good contact hitter, decent speed, decent glove. Everything else kind of average-ish is, but still think he can be a useful major leaguer for us in the not-too-distant future. Don't think he's the answer to our infield depth issues this year, but he's not too far away. Tony Godinez, IAFA signing from that first pool in 2026, just starting his 2nd year in the DSL. He was good a year ago, off to a really good start this year, 7 for his first 15 with a double. Could be promoted to Class A when the DSL season comes to an end. He's the number 27 prospect in baseball, but a good example of that owner goal. We picked him up in the first IAFA signing period we had in 2026. He's the number 27 prospect in baseball, and he unfortunately is still only 19 years old, and we need him to be contributing in the majors in the next 3 years to get any benefit for that owner goal. And he's still in the DSL, and he's actually out for a week with an injured foot that he suffered a couple weeks ago, so that's a big part of the reason that he's only played 5 games. Unfortunately, he missed most of his first season last year because of an injury also. Strained PCL to his right knee that cost him 5 to 6 weeks last year. The fractured foot this year. Hopefully he'll be back from that in about a week, and then he'll be able to finish out the DSL season. And then, as I said, hopefully we can see what he can do in the California League. Tyler Koopman, 5th round pick in last year's draft, number 32 prospect in baseball. We just promoted him to AA. He put up a 2.48 ERA with 14.3 strikeouts per 9 innings in high A ball. So going to get the opportunity to see what he can do in AA now. The left-handed reliever control is his potential issue. He did walk 17 in 29 innings, so that is still a concern for him, but we'll see what he can do against a higher level of competition. And then our final top 50 prospect, Jake Riley, our 1st round pick from a year ago. Don't love some of the personality traits, but we've had good luck in the development lab with him this past off season. Promoted him to Salt Lake about a month ago. 4-1 record is good. but the 5.05 earned run average, not particularly impressive. That said, his Sierra is close to 2 runs better than that. He's close to a win above replacement. Hasn't been dominant at AAA, but certainly looks like a guy who could be helping us in the majors in the not too distant future. And off to a good start here in the month of July, 3-0 record, won the final 2 games of the series at Houston to take that series, and then we just won the first game of a homestand against the Twins. Got another 6 games until we get to draft day, so that'll be when we finish up the episode. We'll sim through the first round of the draft until our pick, and then see who's available for us to consider at that point before we open things up for input from the worldwide scouting department on what we should perhaps do. Some good news on the injury front. Zach Neto now back and healthy. Although it was only a broken finger, he has been out for 6 weeks, so we're going to probably give him a couple days in AAA Salt Lake just to work out the kinks a little bit, give him an opportunity to play a little bit of third base down there too, which is a position we're still trying to train him up a bit at, since his range has actually declined a bit, and he may, for the long term, be more of a natural third baseman for us than the second base position that he's been playing for us most of the past several seasons. And we've continued to play good ball here in the month of July, run our record to 6-1. We dropped just 1 game at home against Minnesota in that 4-game series. Took the first of this final 3-game series before we go on the road ahead of the All-Star break from St. Louis. We are ready to bring Neto up. He hasn't been particularly good. He was 0 for his first 7, but he did go 1 for 3 yesterday in his 4th game in Salt Lake. He did also improve his third base proficiency by 1 notch from 40 to 45. So we're going to bring him back up now. Doesn't seem like he's raking at Salt Lake by any stretch of the imagination, but he has drawn 4 walks, and want to kind of hopefully start to stabilize things at the major league level. We are actually just going to waive and DFA Randy Arozarena. Although, as we talked about, Mershon has not been great defensively. The fact that Arozarena had to play second base for us at a point tells me that we're a little light on defense, which kind of knew that we were. But with Lewis and Neto back and Mershon still on the roster, that should give us a little more depth. I'll see if anyone's willing to give us anything for Arozarena. I can't imagine there's going to be much of a bid at all for him at this point in his career, with his very poor offensive performance this season and his defensive limitations. And I was wrong. I don't understand that. I mean, I guess on paper he's still a useful player. We had Willie Castro a year ago, and he was a pretty useful utility infielder for us. Looks like he, as a 31-year-old switch hitter, is definitely regressing a bit offensively. He put up a 132 WRC plus for us a year ago, playing pretty regularly with Atlanta, and he's still been a league average offensive player. Don't know that he's a panacea for what we need, but Castro is probably a little bit better than Mershon at this point offensively. Arozarena on paper is a better offensive player, but I mean, he was an above average offensive player a year ago for Miami, but just doesn't seem to be working this year. So wasn't expecting, I mean, not that it's a huge list of options, but I'm going to at least explore whether or not there's anything we can do in the trade market to maybe get a little value out of Randy Arozarena. And we're going to actually trade for Willie Castro. Reunite with him can basically be done money neutral with the Braves. Castro is just going to be a utility infielder for us, but it'll let us put Mershon back in AAA, get him everyday action, give us a switch hitter off the bench who can play competently for us defensively anywhere. Obviously, getting a Rosarena off the team for Neto, I think, is a much more significant part of the move than getting Castro on the team for Mershon. But Castro was really good for us a year ago, so we are going to go ahead and complete that trade, and our second experiment with Randy Arozarena is now complete, and we begin our second experiment with Willie Castro. And we've made some changes to our lineup. Neto going to be back in as our starting second baseman against right-handed pitching, and switch things a bit against left-handed pitching. Neto was playing third for us against lefties. He's back in that role. But with the departure of Mr. Arozarena, we're going to make Vlad Guerrero Jr. our DH, and we're going to let Addison Barger play at first base for us. Castro is just going to be a pure utility guy. Hopefully we'll eliminate the situation where someone with Arozarena's defensive limitations has to play second base for us. So Castro will be available every day as a defensive substitute for us, and Royce Lewis is not in the lineup against right-handed pitching, so he's also a guy who frequently will be able to be used as a defensive replacement or to give a guy a day off when he needs it. So hopefully that will help stabilize the defense a little bit for us going forward. And we continue to play our best baseball of the year as we get closer to the draft, which is tomorrow. But good timing, since we're going to be opening up decisions around what we should do in the draft for the Worldwide Scouting Department to opine on. We've also gotten a intriguing trade offer from the Rays. We mentioned Jake Riley, picked him 14th overall a year ago. Think the left-hander can be an important part of our rotation going forward, although we definitely don't like many of his personality traits. But if we're really going for it now, the Tampa Bay Rays just offered us Shane McClanahan for him. 31-year-old lefty is signed for another 3.5 seasons at $31 million a year through his mid-30s seasons. 9-3 with a 2.91 ERA and a 3.9 WAR this year, so he's pitching pretty much as well as he ever has. Four-time All-Star. Would give us a lefty in the rotation, ground ball tendencies, throws in the high 90s. We've got the money basically to bring him on board with that $31 million contract. Obviously, he'll fit this year easily with more than half the season being done, and would just about fit next year. I guess the question is, he's 8 years older than Riley. He's likely starting to decline. He's certainly better than Riley today. We had good luck, as I noted, in the development lab with Riley a year ago. Doesn't mean that it's a guarantee we'll have good luck in the development lab with him again, given that poor work ethic, but definitely makes us a better team for the next year, year and a half. The question is, when we start getting 3, 4, 5+ years out, when McClanahan is either very expensive and old or no longer with us, I think the assumption is that out in the future, Jake Riley will be better than him in the next several seasons as Riley hopefully continues getting better and McClanahan and the ravages of age impact his performance. It's really tempting because we are a win-now team that's playing incredibly well, with the fact that we do have Jacob deGrom just 3 weeks away from potentially being able to boost our pitching staff, although his curve and his changeup, we don't think those are quite as good as they used to be, but still with that, if he still's got that excellent fastball slider combo, he can get away with third and fourth pitches that aren't that good. I think my inclination is to say no, but I would love to hear rationale either in support of what I'm saying or even more interesting against what I'm saying as far as this trade. I just think McClanahan's definitely better right now. Almost certainly will be better in 2029. But by 2030, I think Riley's just as good as McClanahan, and he's probably better than him from 2031 and beyond. A lot less expensive. And our starting pitching, although I'd always love to add more starting pitching, really isn't a big problem right now. So I'm inclined to wait. We've got 14 days to complete or reject the trade to, and we're just going to move forward to tomorrow. So it's conceivable they trade him to someone else over the next 24, 48 hours, but would love to know what the Worldwide Scouting Department thinks about that option. And we have moved forward to draft day. It looks like he hasn't gone anywhere else, so we will have to make a decision on that eventually. Our old buddy Mike Trout, bruised thigh, going to need more time to recover from that. Last time we checked in on him, he was having a pretty solid season. Still is, 17 homers, 36 ribbies, and 251 at-bats. Going to be out for another week, it looks like, but he still put up a 116 WRC plus for the Orioles this year. Tampa Bay at 38 and 52 is last in the AL East, so guess it kind of makes sense for them to want to move on from McClanahan and that big contract. As I said, it's so tempting because he's such a good pitcher and a big name, and we've got the money to bring him on board. But I'm inclined to run with the toy cannon and his challenging personality. So one final thing to look at before we finish up this episode. Our Angels are going to be picking 27th in the draft. That begins right now. So we will go ahead, start the draft, and find out who is available for us here. You can see the top 11 players in the draft, at least in the mock draft, are all gone, as you would expect by the time we're picking at number 27. And what happened here? What happened to our third round pick? This could be a bug in the game. Yeah, we're supposed to be picking third in the 20th round with a compensatory pick when we didn't sign our third round pick from a year ago. Now we did actually lose our third round pick for this year when we signed DeGrom. We talked about that an episode or two ago. But we should have the 20th pick in the third round, and it's not showing up here. So this might be, I don't know, might still be a little bug in the game. Although since I started this game when the first version that hasn't been patched came out, maybe this is something that was patched that they have since fixed. If you've got any thoughts or you've seen this, love to know in the comments, and I'll obviously explore a little bit on the OOTP message boards whether there's been any problems with the picks that you get. Last year we drafted a guy who was impossible to sign in the third round. We did not end up signing him, so we were supposed to get the extra third round pick this year. And you can see that very clearly in the draft order here, where we're supposed to have the 20th pick in the third round this year. But when we get into our draft central, it looks like that pick is not showing up for us. So I think that's probably a little bug in the game. We'll know for sure in the next episode when we sim through this. But regardless, let's look at some of the top players who may be available. Scouting recommendations, center fielder Nick James, not Rick James. Pretty interesting hitting profile. Think he can have good home run power, decent range, good personality, pretty good speed. 18-year-old, long way to go to get to the majors. Not looking for a ton of money. Certainly could be an interesting option. Starting pitcher Dan Adams has a brutal personality. The lefty is committed to Middle Tennessee State. Been willing to experiment with some college players with rough personalities, thinking that since they're already 70, 80% developed, there's potentially less of a risk for guys with low adaptability or work ethic or baseball intelligence. But a high school pitcher with that profile, I think, is going to be pretty tough for me to get excited about. Reliever Zach Steiner. Looks like he can be an excellent reliever. Durable, lefty, ground ball, throw in the high 90s. Potentially outstanding fastball and slider. Don't know that I'm going to take him as a first-round pick. Then shortstop Manny Garcia out of Shippensburg University. Looks respectable defensively, decent speed, potentially a really good contact hitter. Not much of an eye, not much home run power. Few others. Center fielder Dan Duran out of Texas A&M was projected to go. He's dealing with a torn hip flexor tendon, going to be out for another month or so. So even though college player, you might end up playing in A-ball, he's not going to have much of a season this year. Not a lot of power, pretty respectable potential in a lot of the other categories. First baseman Brian Moore, high school first base prospect, not all that interesting to me. Talked about Manny Garcia already. Sherson Noriega was projected to go 19th to the Royals. Very borderline potential two-way player. Actually kind of interesting with the really good control, solid stamina. Just don't think the stuff is all that good. Probably not a direction that we would go. Romeo Gasea, 21-year-old out of Evansville. Really good power, really good eye, like the durability. Not the greatest contact hitter in the world. Shortstop Dave Lynch. Don't like the personality. Poor level of competition that he's been facing in Canada. I think his eye and his home run power are always going to be big issues. Getting to where we're picking. Shortstop Jason Topolsky was expected to go the pick before ours. Struggles to contact the ball with the bat, but great potential power and eye for the Notre Dame product. We were projected to be taking first baseman TK Lamberth, potentially excellent contact hitter, kind of average at everything else. Center fielder Nick Delladonna of Detroit, another guy with really good power who's going to likely strike out at an amount that could be career limiting. Josh May, left fielder. Good contact hitter without much power and eye. Seems like we're seeing a lot of profiles. It's either a guy who's an incredible contact hitter who's kind of meh in everything else, and then we're seeing a lot of guys with really great home run power, pretty strong eyes who really struggle to make contact. Pata Jaroba May, a lot of positive personality traits for him. And the final guy expected to go in the first round, center fielder John Police out of Vanderbilt. Good gap power, good speed. Scott Kovacevic, Tice, left-handed starting pitcher out of Seton Hall. Stuff and movement aren't far off major league quality. The issue with him is his control, but he's durable, really good stamina, not going to throw all that hard. Starting pitcher Josh Weaver out of Indiana. Similar profile. Think his stuff and his movement aren't too far off major league quality. Got some work to do with his control. Take a look at some of the highest end prospects out there that we haven't talked about. Talked about Lamberth, talked about Gasea and Garcia. Pretty sure we talked about Nick James. Yeah, I think he was the first guy that we talked about. He's the one that our scout likes the best and probably has one of the better balanced profiles of anyone available. Don't think we've talked about Julio Nunez. Solid defensively and a respectable-ish looking bat if the switch hitter reaches his full potential. Take a look if there's any of the top pitching prospects that we haven't focused on. We talked about Adams. That personality just has me very concerned. And then there's a few relievers. Craig Harley out of Wilmington University. That control will keep me away from him despite the fact that he throws in triple digits. That is just not going to work. 20 control that we think at best can get up to 30. Gabe Sexton out of Austin College, not far off, being ready for the majors. Think he can throw in triple digits. Fortunately, he's a guy that we don't have great scouting accuracy on. And he's faced a poor competition level. And then Zach Steiner, another reliever. Don't know that he's the answer. So some interesting decisions to be made. Going to have plenty of money to spend. Not that it looks like there's a ton of impossible to sign guys out there. There are a fair amount of pitchers who are impossible to sign, but none of them seem to have the ceilings that would be all that interesting to us. Taking a look at some of the batters who are potentially impossible to sign. A few of them out there, but again, the highest ceilings seem to be Scott Miller and Christian Knighton. And I don't see myself wanting to spend a ton of money on either of those guys. So can't say I love anybody. I haven't spent a ton of time thinking about this. Kind of like the young center fielder Nick James. But again, this is something I'll spend a lot more time thinking about offline between now and the next episode, and hoping that hopefully the worldwide scouting department will share some interesting thoughts with me as well as perhaps what we should do. But season going much better. We've won 5 in a row, 8 of our last 10, and we are now tied for first place in the AL West with the Mariners. We are tied with the Mariners for the best record in baseball, so this still remains a situation where the winner of the AL West conceivably has a first-round bye and home field advantage throughout the playoffs. Second-place team in the AL West could have the second-best record in baseball and have to play in a wild card series. So going to be pivotal to continue playing good ball and hopefully hold on to win the division. Vlad Guerrero Jr. Still leading the league in ribbies, now third in the league in OPS. Schwellenbach leading the league in wins and now second in ERA. Duran tied for the league lead in saves, has that ERA down to 4.56. And we'll check in on one final thing before we finish the episode. What's Rodriguez been doing during this hot streak for the team? Kind of what he's been doing all year. Still hitting .236. Does now have 16 homers, 39 ribbies, 8 steals, 119 WRC plus, and a 3.2 WAR. Fans love his charisma. He's already become a fan favorite, which is great to see. So a lot of decisions to be made, not just in the draft, but should we potentially trade away one of the top prospects in our system for a 31-year-old Shane McClanahan, or are we better off staying with what we have? Keep saying everything is going to be the last thing we do in this episode, but might as well check in on the trade block one final time. And a couple more interesting players added. Francisco Alvarez added by the Mets. He would be that bat we're looking for against left-handed pitching, but would definitely be a downgrade defensively. He's making a lot of money. Where are the Mets in the standings? They are brutal. How's Juan Soto working out for you now, Mets? It's 2028. You're a last place team. Soto hitting 263, still really good at drawing walks, but he's had some rough years for the Mets. 228 and 240 batting averages. Still a 138 WRC plus. Obviously, still a great offensive player, but the Mets at 32 and 58 are one of the worst teams in baseball this year. I have a feeling they're going to want a lot for Alvarez, but we might as well check. Yeah, we're not going to trade them Riley or Rodriguez to rent your catcher for a month or for 3 months. So that's not going to happen. Maybe the price will come down a bit. Byron Buxton, 34 years old, fragile, still really good defensively. Basically a league average offensive player. Is a right-handed hitter, and he definitely is better against left-handed pitching than he is against right-handed pitching. Maybe there's something to do there. Would definitely be great to get our left field better, although it's a position he's going to have to learn at the major league level at the age of 34, but he's certainly capable of doing that. I don't know that Buxton is the answer, but I was going to say I would think that his cost would be less at his age than what the Mets are looking for, but he's got his 10-5 rights. Again, I don't really think he's the answer, but still would have been interesting to at least see what the Twins might want for him. Pitching-wise, Edwin Diaz, guy who certainly could help the bullpen. The Dodgers have him on the market. The Dodgers are so loaded that he's not even closing for them, so it sounds like he might be causing some problems in the locker room since he expects to be the closer. They put him on the trading block, but 4 ERA is not what you'd expect to see from him. Imagine they're going to want a decent amount for him. Oh, another guy with a no-trade clause who doesn't want to move, however many miles it is between Anaheim and Chavez Ravine. Ryan Helsey, a guy who I think we looked at in the free agent market last year, certainly could help. Signed for 2 years. I don't know that we want to be spending $12.6 million on him a year from now, but he's a good, solid major league reliever. We could easily bring him on board. They're looking for better players or better prospects, but with that number of guys on the list, I'm sure there's something we could work out if we wanted to bring them on board. With our bullpen being so good this year, just don't know that Helsey is much of an impact guy for us, especially since we do hope to have, at some point, both DeGrom and Joyce back before we get to the end of this season. So a lot of interesting decisions, whether it's the trade market, whether it's the trade that we've been offered, whether it's the upcoming draft. If you got opinions on what we should be doing, would love to hear them. Until our next episode, thanks so much for watching, and hope you have a great day.